All right, welcome everybody. Because we had some technical difficulties during class today, and because this is a pretty challenging lesson, I just wanted to go ahead and give you a couple of hints and reminders as you go ahead and try homework number 79 here. So notice the directions for the first four: find the sum or difference, identify any restrictions on the domain. So as far as these four problems go, this is kind of the dream because of the fact that in each of these instances, you already have a common denominator, meaning that each of these denominators is exactly the same. You're going to go ahead and be able to simply just add or subtract them depending on whatever the operator is in the middle. You should then try to simplify if at all possible. And then, of course, you should go ahead and state your domain restrictions. So I'm going to go ahead and do just one of these with you. So I'm going to go ahead and do D. So if you take a look at D here, again, obviously, if you look at the pinks, you can see that you do, in fact, already have a common denominator. So all I need here is an x plus 2. And again, if you've been in the habit of putting that in parentheses, just so you make sure you know you cannot cancel the x or the 2 separately, you might want to do that. Then, because of the fact that this is just a simple subtraction, you're going to go ahead and have a numerator of 3x squared minus 12. Now, it's very possible that when you do addition or subtraction, there won't be any additional steps to be done, but in this case, there is. And again, if we're going to ask you to go a little bit farther, it should be relatively obvious. So I see a big old 3 there, so I'm going to go ahead and factor that 3 out, which is going to leave me with an x squared minus 4. Then, because I have here two terms with a subtraction in between, and because I have perfect squares, that is, of course, the difference of squares, which says you can now factor it as x plus 2 and x minus 2. Remember, in any order, all over x plus 2. Once you get to here, you can in fact reduce an x plus 2 from the top and an x plus 2 on the bottom, which leaves you with a final answer of 3 times x minus 2. Now, you are welcome to go ahead and distribute that if you'd like, but you don't have to. So that's a perfectly good answer. Again, technically, that is over 1, which you could put the 1 or not put the 1. Totally up to you. Just remember, in the final restriction step, you have to tell me the domain. Now, if there were no restrictions at any point, you could just say all real numbers. But if you want to check for sure, you have to check all of your denominators at every step. And even though they get completely canceled out in the final step, along the way, you would not be able to have an x value of -2 because that would give you a 0 in a denominator. So you do want to make sure that as you do these first four problems, you go ahead and account for both. Then the thing that allows us to actually do the harder problems is by finding the least common multiple. Remember, when you want to be lazy, a least common multiple is just the two things multiplied by each other, but oftentimes there's a much simpler answer. So again, if you take a look at C here, if I ask you for the least common multiple of the yellow and the orange, the worst thing you could do is just say, oh, it's those two things times each other. You're going to wind up with a big old mess, and your answer is going to be even worse. So you're going to go ahead and factor each one. And again, in each of these cases, this is just a trinomial with a coefficient of 1. So factors of the back that add to be the middle would be +2 and +3 for the first one. And then would be, for the second one, +3 and -6. And then here's how you go about choosing your LCM. So again, these are the two different pieces. If there is any factor that is a repeat, you only need one of those in your LCM, and we tend to usually put that first. If there are no other repeats, which in this case there are not, then you're going to need one of each of the others. So you're going to need an x plus 2, and you're going to need an x minus 6. So your final answer, your LCM, is these three things multiplied. And again, these two blues, you only need to have one copy in the multiple because one copy takes care of both. Then once you get better at identifying the LCM, now you're back to finding sum or differences. And again, in these cases, while some of them have the same denominator, most of them will not. And again, for something like B, you might just want to remember that each of these is their own set of parentheses. So the least common multiple means you need one of x minus 3, and you need one of x plus 10. I'll go ahead and do one with you, and I'll do one of the harder ones. So I'll go ahead and I'll do C with you. So here in C, again, your mission would be to factor, if at all possible. If you take a look at the 2x plus 1, that is already in factored form. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that. If you take a look at the blue denominator, this is where you would need your AC method. So again, you would multiply 2 times negative 3 would be negative 6. Factors of negative 6 that add up to be negative 5 would be positive 1x and a negative 6x. You could then go ahead and do 2x squared plus 1x minus 6x minus 3. Go ahead and group the first two, group the second two, pull the GCF out of both, so take out an x. Then when in doubt, take the negative out. So I'm going to take out a minus 3, which is going to leave me with a 2x plus 1. And again, that's a very good sign because if there's a repeat, which there is in this case, the 2x plus 1, that's half your answer. And then whatever's on the outside is your other half. Now, again, there may be some of you who are able to do this using guess and check or using some other method. But for most of us out there, we're going to go ahead and use the AC method. So I'm going to look at the 2x plus 1. I'm going to look at my factored version, and I'm going to notice that there is, in fact, a repeat. So as I go to choose my least common multiple, the fact that there is a repeat means that I'm only going to need one of those in my LCM. So I'm going to need a 2x plus 1. And then I'm going to need anything that's left over. And in this case, the only leftover would be x minus 3. So I'm going to go ahead and need one of those as well. So finding the LCM is the most important part. Don't be shy if it takes you a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes even to do that. So as you go to go from here, you're going to go ahead and start with 4x over 2x plus 1. If you go ahead and compare the LCM to what you currently have, you're going to go ahead and multiply the top and bottom by whatever it is you're missing. And in this case, you're missing an x minus 3. So you're going to multiply an x minus 3 on the top, and you're going to multiply an x minus 3 on the bottom. Again, the reason why you have to build this yellow and green LCM, you already have the yellow. In order to now get the green, you have to multiply top and bottom. Then plus, because of the fact that the denominator of the 5 is already the LCM, you don't actually have to multiply it by anything. You can just leave it as 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. Again, because both parts are accounted for, you don't actually have to multiply by anything. So now you're on cleanup duty, and really all you have to worry about is multiplying these tops. So you're going to get 4x times x, which is 4x squared, minus 12x, then plus 5, and this is all over 2x plus 1 times x minus 3. Now, again, it is possible that the answer that you get up top may or may not be factorable. The truth is, it is factorable in this case, although I would probably accept this as your final answer. In order for you to factor the top, you'd have to use the AC method again. And again, because that's not 100% what it is I'm looking for you to do, as long as you're able to get to here, that really is the goal. Just so you know, if you did want to go one step farther, the numerator would factor as 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 5. Perhaps factoring the numerator and the denominator will be more important in the future. But for now, if you're able to get down here to the final blue, then really that shows you know what's going on. And in your final step here, your restrictions. So again, your restrictions come from each of the bottoms. So you can't have a positive 3, nor can you have a negative 1/2. So hopefully that's enough, at least to help get you started. Maybe you still will have a little bit of trouble with some of the challenging ones, but at least you might be better off than you were to start with. Okay, so go back and retry the rest of homework 79, and we will go over it together next time in class.